Okay, boom. Welcome everyone. Now there'll be some people joining us live soon. So I'll hold off on the introductions. But how are you, Dean?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks, Jack. It's Fridays is usually a day off for me, so a day for recuperation and rest and regeneration. So it's nice to be able to commit to this and have a bit of time with you.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being on. So we've got a couple of people watching now. As always, guys, this is the new form in how we're doing the podcast. We're doing it live today. We've got Dean Lloyd with us, and we're going to talk about how to rethink the criminal justice system and hear a little bit about his story and the work that he does. So that should be pretty interesting. So wherever you're watching from, I would love it if you could drop in the comments where you're watching from and any questions that you might have as we kind of get into the chat. But Dean, did you want to tell us the 3-minute origin story of yourself and how you got into all this work?
Yeah, okay. So I grew up in the southern suburbs of Sydney. In upper middle white class, I suppose, and fell into some substance abuse around, like, probably started abusing it really around the age of 18 and up. Then in the need to get more of those substances, had to, become criminal activity. I was involved in criminal activity. That led to me eventually going to prison, and then ultimately a 4-year sentence, and that turning into what I refer to as a perpetual punishment. So just being continually punished and revisited and viewed through that mistake that I made over 20 years ago now. And then got into real estate, a family business, done quite okay in that, come unstuck, I suppose, and relapsed back into substance abuse, and then realized that I didn't want to be in that world anymore, the real estate world, and decided that I wanted to get into the the community services sector. And from there have realized, that's when I started to really face discrimination, like 13 years out of prison. Couldn't get a job, no one gave me a job, and then have eventually sort of then I finally got a job where my criminal record was a requirement, which that sort of changed the whole shift of my thought. Then worked in those sectors for a while with organisations, and realised that there was a real limiting level of ability for me to get into sort of management areas and stuff like that. Shared at a few criminology conferences, and then started connecting with academics and more academics, which was it's an interesting thing for me, not really being that driven at school. And now subsequently got a real thirst for knowledge and learning more, and went on to study. I've got a graduate certificate in Gestalt therapy, diploma in community services, and I've got a real keen interest in systems and Murray Bowen and his family systems thinking and theory. And I'm hopefully looking to how I can implement that in the criminal justice system and impacting change there. So that's the 3-minute version.
Wow, man. No, I love it. And there's so much interesting stuff that I want to expand off. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show to talk about this stuff, and particularly stream it into LinkedIn. And thanks for the people watching, dropping in where you're from. It's pretty cool. And for everyone watching as well, like, feel free to put in any questions or comments as you're going, because I think this is going to be a pretty interesting topic. And I forgot to say it at the start. Sorry, Dean. I must admit, my bathroom's getting done. My dining, like, we're renovating the whole house. I look like I'm in a construction site. So sorry if you can hear banging and stuff, everyone. But yeah, it's why I wanted to get you on, because I know in the alcohol and drug space, and the whole community service space, really, the criminal justice system has such a negative impact on people when they come into contact with it. And people just really, really struggle to, as you said, 13 years after you had finished your prison sentence, you were still struggling. You completely changed your life. You're still struggling to get employment and stuff. It's so interesting. So
I had this incident the other day, 20 years, and we're, looking at going on a TV program around some other things and work I've been doing, and they requested criminal records checks. Like, the thing was, we're going on the TV show to spruik that we were doing the work, trying to break barriers, giving people jobs and all this sort of stuff. And they wanted to do criminal records checks on us. And we've had to walk away from that whole situation on a principle where it could have impacted and been of so much benefit for all these other people to ripple through the community. And this, this TV program was like, oh, we need to do criminal records checks. I was like, are you, what does that mean?
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Those barriers that people face, and like, I'm blessed because, I'm in the most privileged demographic in the world. I'm a white man. There is no more privilege. So it's easy for me to negotiate. I've already got favor. Wherever I go, I've already got favor. Yeah. So for me to understand that and use that as leverage to, impact in places that I can and support other people to get their voices heard. That's what I'm about really nowadays.
Yeah. It's super cool. It's super cool. So tell us, when you were saying in your story earlier, what age were you when you had that prison sentence and you were kind of hooked on the drugs and stuff like that? How old were you?
I think, so I got out at about 27. I think about 26 when I went into prison. I got a 4-year sentence. And that was close to the end, I used to, I don't like to call it I recreationally used drugs at a younger age. And then, there's all this terminology that I really want to get clear about today when I'm talking, because I think the language we use in these spaces is significant. So going back to, I was like 26, I got out, and I wasn't finished yet. I proposed to the girl that was my co-offender on the back of an escort truck just after we got sentenced. She said yes. I met her in rehab. Everything that they tell you not to do, I ticked all those boxes because I just needed to take myself. So we got married. We had a kid. It's I was very unhealthy and making really unhealthy decisions in my life. Like, I don't come from a significant trauma history or background as a child. So ultimately, I should have known better not to do those things. But, being a product of my environment, my mum and dad really provided for me when I was a kid, mainly because they didn't have that when they were children. So they swung to the opposite end of the spectrum, and we're going to give him everything, and it is what it is. I'm not blaming them. It's my fault. I've learned to take responsibility for my actions and the consequences of my actions, which personal responsibilities really allowed me to grow up and see who I am. It's easier said than done at times. That's the lessons that I've learned out of going into prison at 26. Really having a horrible experience for 2 weeks of prison, and then for the rest of the time it just become easier and easier. So there was no deterrent there for me in the end.
It's really interesting. So a couple of things, the language stuff I want to talk with you about, because I'm big on this at the moment, and I find it really interesting and how it's changed in my belief systems as well. Because I've had a very similar experience to yourself, doing like some advocacy work in the lived experience space just for drug users. And just, it's funny, but I've been really open to talking with, academics and stuff like that, and it's really changed the way that I think about the whole thing. But what do you think about that whole concept? So 26, I think you said you go in there and, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing the wrongs that you might have done and all that sort of stuff, but you're such a young, like, I'm, I'm nearly 30 now. In a couple of weeks, I'm 30.
Yeah.
Like, and if I even just think back to 4 years ago, like, and I've had all this recovery and self-development and stuff, I was a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like 4 years ago, like, it's kind of crazy, isn't it, that you're such a young man, and then, as you said, you get these consequences that can last a lifetime.
Yeah. And ultimately, my experience has been is jail and prison is just full of scared little boys.
Yeah.
Started in the developmental stuff and trying to make a big name for themselves.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough. I fell in with like the right people, I suppose, and was somewhat looked after in those areas. But there was this guy there, and he used to say to me all the time, he's like, "You don't belong here, mate. What are you doing here?" I was like this little weedy guy from the Sutherland Shire. The vast majority of everybody else was from Mount Druitt, which I don't know if that equates to you, but it's like from Toorak, you know what I mean? So that's not to say that they're any better or they're any different, but it's just that's probably easier for you to reconcile, just around that's where I was and what my life was like. And then all of a sudden I'm in with all these people that have lived totally different lives to me. And started to feel at home, started to really feel comfortable in that space, and that's the dangerous thing. That's the sad thing. When, people talk about prison reform and all this and that, my ultimate goal is I don't want to make prison any more comfortable for anybody.
Yeah.
More humane, yes, but it's my ability to be able to make the community more comfortable for people, for me to be more comfortable with difference of other people in the community. Like that's my job. It's not like we're just outsourcing that to prison at the moment, and like it's all fucked up in many ways.
Mate, this is such an interesting. As you're speaking, I'm like, yes, because this is a real interesting conversation. I was actually speaking to a mate of mine that I've kind of gone through recovery with the other day, doing a podcast, but the tech messed up. I'm going to have to do it again with him. But he did a fair bit of prison through his years and his drug use and stuff. And exactly like what you said, he actually said that he used to act crazy, but it was because he was scared, and he just used to do crazy shit so that people would kind of stay away from him. You know what I mean? And exactly like what you said as well, he said to me, after a while of being in prison, he didn't realize this at the time, but all he was looking for was to kind of feel a part of something. And he kind of got that from the strange sort of like camaraderie that happens in those circumstances and stuff. And that's what actually was part of perpetuating his experience in those institutions and stuff. That's
the crazy thing. And I think that there's a level to that in the rehab scenario too, because I think I've done about 18 rehabs and just kept going in and out, and got that cohort of people that I felt comfortable with. And this is part of the problem that I see at the moment, and this whole and soul, in my opinion. But what we're trying to do in attempting to support people is totally missed. Like, we're treating people as the problem.
Yeah.
But these are issues that are created societally, and socially, and they're I'm a symptom of those problems. Then what we try and do is isolate them somewhere, whether it be rehab, whether it be prison, and then just park them there. Like, rehab's a little bit different. They try and get you to do a bit of work on yourself, blah, blah, blah. Even if you do that work on yourself, they isolate you or segregate you from that, and then plant you back in the exact same environment that you left from, untreating the people that you live with, because they're part of creating that problem. There are institutions that have like a week of family therapy, which, that's just like, let's just rip the top off this shit and then fucking we'll leave you to it. Just those things. And then, then not only the family, then it's like, okay, how do we expand out of that? How do we resource this family enough in the community to be able to support this individual? And I like to, I wrote a program, an employment pathways program for, and was running it in a few prisons. And what I discovered, and this is what I see as the narrow-mindedness of governments and corrections. So what I discovered was, out of 80 participants, 78 hadn't been past year 7 at school.
Wow.
One of the two that had was autistic and was just sort of off the spectrum in genius, and the other one was a lawyer that got his hand caught in the cookie. So understandable they had gone past. But so what then corrections does, or government thinks, oh, we need to give them an education. It's like, no, you don't need to give them an education. What you need to do is go and see and understand, why weren't these people being supported in year 7, and what was their family not being supported to do to get them to school?
100%.
Going all the way back, how do we resource families, communities enough to support people in their communities? It's like, for argument's sake, I'd jump over your back fence, steal some bread, whatever I take. And then your neighbour goes, hey, I seen Dean jump over your back fence the other day, blah, blah, blah. And we're good mates. Anyway, so then it's all of a sudden, hey, Dean, why did you jump over my back fence and what did you take the other day? Oh, I was a bit hungry. Listen, mate, knock on the front door next time. I've got plenty of bread. Come and see me. What happens nowadays is your neighbour calls the police on me jumping over the fence.
Yeah.
Or you call the police on me jumping over the fence. Police come around and see me. There's no negotiation in that process. And generally, the vast majority of people in prison are in for petty shit like that.
Yeah.
So what's stealing to survive?
I agree. It's something that we talk about in the alcohol and drug space a lot. Obviously, there's lots of different cohorts of people, but, a large percentage of people are using alcohol and drugs because it's like something to kind of cover up trauma, or they've got poverty issues going on or whatever. And that might fuel some like crime. And then just like what you're saying, just in general with the crime stuff as well, that a lot of that can be fueled just out of, the petty stuff, just out of trying to survive,
And so interesting. You look at alcohol, like it's undisputed that alcohol causes the most damage to society.
That's right.
And if you go back to when it was illegal to drink alcohol, imagine if it was still illegal to drink alcohol today. How full would our prisons be? For one. But when you criminalise, because it used to be legal to get, you could buy it over the counter, chemist, cocaine, heroin, like those sorts of, morphine sulfate, all that stuff. You could buy it probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe 50 when I was just born, or just before I was born, but like around those times. And then they decided to make it a criminal activity. So they criminalized it. And then that places a need on prison and like fills up prisons. But the issue today is prisons, we cannot build fast enough, yet crime in Australia specifically is at an all-time low. It's never been lower. In recording crime and activities of criminal activity, like that stuff, it's never been at a lower, ever since they started recording them. Yet our prisons have never been fuller.
Wow, interesting.
So like, what the fuck's going on there?
Yeah, interesting. So just on that point, and for people watching, would love it if you dropped your thoughts and comments in as we're having this conversation, so we can kind of talk about it live, because it is an interesting topic, and it is one that can be a little bit polarizing for people, I suppose. So it'd be interesting to have that chat. But tell me, what do you say to people that would say, well, okay, Dean, but there's got to be a point, we can't just
for this one.
Yeah, we can't just let people, run amok and whatever. And there is, education programs or reintegration programs that happen in the prisons and stuff like that. Like, surely there's all that work being done. What's wrong with that? What would you say to those people?
Okay, so when you're punishing people and traumatizing them, it's very hard for them to learn and be educated because they're in fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're getting traumatized, it's hard to integrate anything.
Yeah.
So that's what prison is. Prison's a form of punishment, and people are being traumatized. agreed to universally that it's a traumatizing experience.
Mm.
To try and teach people stuff in those spaces, very hard to do. Very hard to do. And then, ultimately back to when we apply a one-size-fits-all solution to 3%, it's about 3% of the prison population that are murderers, rapists, pedophiles. So when we apply a one-size-fits-all solution, 97% of those individuals are being treated as a pedophile, a murderer, a rapist, that sort of stuff. It doesn't work. It won't work I'm not saying prison hasn't been a solution for other people, but what I would suggest is when we're looking at prison, we need a myriad of different pathways and understandings to get people away from those systems and the issues that people face. Like, prison's a symptom. It's not the problem. It's the same as the drug addiction. It's a symptom. It's not the problem. The criminal justice system and the systemic nature of that and the discrimination that people face, all those issues are external of that system. So when I get out of prison and I face discrimination for employment, for housing and all, that's in the community. I'm not in prison when I'm facing those issues. It's because of prison, but it's not while I'm in prison. When I go to prison, I go there because of the discrimination I face in the community around access to drugs, around access to, in that poverty trap and all of those sorts of stuff. So, in order to survive, I need to do certain things and behave criminally, which then gets me into the criminal justice system. So sooner or later, I wish I knew who said this quote because I love it. We can keep pulling people out of the river, but sooner or later we've got to go upstream and see what's pushing them in or why they're jumping in. So that, and this is a community problem that requires a community solution. Like, to try and solve this on our own. And when we outsource this, like, prison is the same as, so when people walk past a homeless person in the street and don't even think about it, which happens every other day, what happens in their brain is there's an organization that's going to come and help this guy. I don't need to worry about it. He's not my concern. He is. That person or her, they're my concern. They're part of the community that I live in. If I'm willing to accept that and outsource it to somebody else, like, that's where we get wrong. Like, the most valuable thing I could give to that guy is time. My time to treat that person humanely. So once we start to get into those spaces, and, that being said, social media, technology, the 24/7 revolution that's happened, where everybody thinks that they have to be on all the time, otherwise they're going to miss out, and the FOMO and all that bullshit, that's what drives it. That's what drives this stuff. I need to go to work every other day because I need a house that's big and people can see it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I've got a roof over my head. I've got food in my fridge. I'm okay. I don't need more. There's an illusion that I should need more and I should have more, but I don't need it. Anything over and above, like, one thing is like, of everything is like, why?
No, it's super interesting to hear you talk about it. And I think that's the complexity that people don't get, is everything that kind of goes behind it, and I think the thing that's so interesting about your story, and that speaks to it so well, is that, like you said, you went through all of this at 26, and then, years later, because of your record, if you don't have your own business or whatever it is, you can't actually even though you've had the training or whatever, you can't actually reintegrate to the community because they won't let you, even if you wanted to.
Hey, look, and I know several people that have got out with, so in New South Wales, there's no, like, you cannot do education anymore in prison. It's run by industry, and it's deemed to be a slave labor camp. $2.65 an hour. Happy days. They get you to work anyway. But I know people that get out with qualifications or have previously got out with qualifications, and they can't get a job.
Yeah.
So ever since it's just become the socially accepted thing to do around criminal record check when you get a job. So I took the corrective services to the Human Rights Commission around discrimination and employment, and that was an arduous task. But just those things of
tell us about that. That sounds pretty crazy.
It was quite crazy. It's a very long story. It took 3 years to do. I don't know. I'm happy to talk about it, but it'll fill up the rest of this time if that's the avenue you want to take.
Yeah. Well, just give us I know it's complex, but maybe try and give us. I do want to hear about it.
I applied for a job under the recommendation of people because I was working in and out of prison, doing some work with other organisations. Got a job, offered a job. They rang up and said, "Oh, wait a minute. When we put your name in the system, you're an unsatisfactory person." What does that mean? Okay, so they've called me, labelled me unsatisfactory from, Anyway, on their website at the time, it said, the ultimate purpose of prison is to keep the community safe. That's I'm not even questioning that. However, our responsibility is to, turn people out to make them responsible, productive members of our community. I was like, hey, I'm that guy. Like, you didn't do it, but I'm a responsible, productive member of the community. Do you not believe in the fucking thing on your website? So, went through the Human Rights Commission. They can't make legal decisions. However, ultimately, after 3 years of being fully gaslit for 3 years, they decided, the Human Rights Commission decided in my favour, gave me the favourable decision. Community service, corrective services put it down to a, what's it called? Administration error. And offered me a job. What do you want to do? And I said, to be totally honest, I don't really want to work for somebody that's treated me like that from the outset. So thanks, no thanks. And I feel like I've really dodged a bullet.
Yeah, awesome.
That's the short version, mate.
But, even the thing that I find ironic about all of that stuff that you're saying, and this is why it's so cool, the work that you're doing, is, as you said off the top, you're a white male. Sounds like you come from like a reasonable family, where you were educated, all that sort of stuff. So, and for people like you and me to go and embark on that process is hard, incredibly stressful and hard. And then the question becomes, well, yeah, they say that people have rights and all that stuff, but if people are kind of coming from a lower bar where they're just struggling to get a couple of bucks in every day to feed themselves, how are they going to, advocate?
They don't have access to that stuff. They don't even know that shit exists. That's the thing. People that I work with are in crisis. They're in constant fucking crisis. And to understand and comprehend that there's a world outside of that crisis, it's impossible. When you're in crisis, there's nothing else about except survival. So, working with people that are just consistently in crisis, it's, ultimately get them to a level of not being in crisis, and then they can just breathe for a minute, and all they want to do is lie down and have a rest, which is understandable, So, that's the thing. It's like, and what I often, going back to the language and talking about the language and how we use the language, like, this is the illusion that is created just in the society in general, like corrective services. We accept that. Like, everybody accepts that as vernacular for prison. There's nothing in that system that corrects anything. But there's that from the start is an illusion around the language you use and around all of that sort of stuff, and how that, systemic racism, all of those systems that are set up and align off the back of that criminal justice system, justice, people seeking justice, it's a palatable form of revenge, really. People just want to have, hey, fair enough. What would be the ultimate justice is, let's teach this person not how to not how to rob people and bash people ever again. Look, that would be like, if I was, I have been a victim of crime, but I don't want people to go to jail.
Yeah.
See it as it's barbaric, it's violent, it's antiquated, and it's obsolete. With all that we know about human behavior today, like prison as a modality of behavior modification is fucking delusional.
Yeah. Yeah.
In its essence.
Yeah.
If we think that we're sending people to modify their behavior to prison, it's not happening. What's happening is prison guards are treating them like absolute shit. Like they go in there and they learn how to do more crime. What happens is they go in there and they're treated like pieces of shit by guards and the system. Every day. Imagine if every day you wake up, oh, you're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, hey, we'll let you go now. Just behave appropriately where you're on, in the society that you're going to be in now.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you, mate. You're a good bloke. People can't hear that after 2 years of hearing you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
There's no integration.
I think that's the point. I think that's the sticking point, because there can be argument and debate around whether people need to go to pay the consequences for their actions and all that. Like, I think that's a hard argument because it's a moral thing and people sit all differently on the spectrum. But I think the sticking point, for me at least, or the good argument is the one that you're making is, well, we're sending people here to, maybe one stream is to punish them, but the idea is so that, they learn their lesson, they come out and they don't do it again. But without realizing it, is what we're actually doing is perpetuating, that behavior more, because you're putting people in a cage with other people that are highly kind of traumatized, and
the people that are putting them in the cage are traumatizing them even further.
That's right.
So they're putting them in a cage and they're just hitting them with a stick.
That's right. That's right.
And then all of a sudden, it's your time to go now.
Yeah, that's right.
What do we expect when they get out? Like, that's the thing. Like, what do we really expect? I always say to people, 100% of people that go to prison will get out. Some people are dead when they get out, but everybody gets out. So being aware of that, when they get out, do you want them to come and live next door to you?
That's right.
Would you rather them live next door to you, readjusted, and what I like to think is, I'm not saying that, like, there needs to be a catalyst for change, and whatever that catalyst is will be different from me to you, even. You know what I mean? How do we make those? How do we stop the one size fits all solution? And the other thing is, like, I went from prison reform to prison abolition, and now I'm obsolete. So I want to make prison is obsolete, but I want to teach people how to make it even more obsolete.
Yeah.
So if people are getting out of prison and we remove those barriers, so if you look at recidivism, here's another label that criminologists have given it.
Yeah.
So recidivism, you can't be a recidivist unless you've been to prison. So what is recidivism? It's when people get out of prison, they're discriminated against so much that they can't get a job, they can't get a house, they need to commit crime to survive, which will ultimately drive them back to prison.
Yeah.
So if we remove those things, like barriers to employment, housing, all those sorts of things, then there goes recidivism. If you look and measure it properly, I think recidivism should be measured as, okay, you're in prison now. Have you been here before? If you ask that question, the stats are about 80%.
Yeah.
So the corrective services and all those people like to do it around, there's 2 years, and they create all these smoke and mirrors around how they measure it. But ultimately, if you're in prison now, hey, have you been in prison before? Yes, that's a really good way to measure it. Simple, easy, everyone can understand it. However, when we remove those barriers back into the community and society, that's when we'll start to see, to get out of prison, you must be assessed as a risk. So you need to be like, okay, what's your risk? We're really worried about this, blah, blah. What are your criminogenic needs? Like, I don't have criminogenic needs. I'm a human. I have human needs to be treated humanely.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have criminogenic needs. The reason why I have those needs that you deem is because you exclude me and isolate me from participating in society. That's my criminogenic need, to participate in society appropriately. So when I've been given that access to participate, and I always say to people when I'm in front of like decision makers, CEOs and stuff like that, the safest thing you can do is employ somebody with a criminal record.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you don't, what option does he have or they have? What option does a person have if he can't get a job and he can't get a house? So what he's going to do is he's going to come around and rob you while you're at work. Like, but it's like, it's the truth. Like, if I said to you, you can't have a job, you can't have this, you can't have that, like, what option do I leave you with? When you know how to spend money and jump through people's windows.
That's right. That's right. No, I actually couldn't agree more. It's really interesting. So you're advocating, or what you kind of talk to people about is almost a little bit like the decriminalization model of drugs and alcohol in like Portugal and European countries like that, where they get someone in front of a board of professionals, they look at the background of their life, and if there is a punishment that needs to happen, that happens, but they're also properly kind of helped in those areas so that they can actually integrate the best they can in society. Is that kind of the style that you would advocate for and look at?
So systemically, look, this is a systemic issue. So systemically, we provide support. How can we resource you enough, the people around you enough, and the community that you live in enough for you to be able to participate in that? Whereas the system that we're in at the moment is punitive and isolative.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll punish you and we'll isolate you.
Yeah.
For a period of time, and then we won't do anything else about it. But after that period of time, we'll let you walk back in the door.
Yeah.
And expect something different from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the fucking idiot there if I expect something different from someone else that they've done, that I've not even give them the ability to address.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. So what do you think about like the labeling? Did you notice the effects of that in your life? And did you notice it kind of come on board on an unconscious level? Because just quickly, like about the language and stuff, and this is something that I'm starting to kind of talk about a little bit more, which is interesting for me even to think about it this way, because I noticed it in myself. But so as you would know, in the alcohol and drug space, the common old school terminology for someone is like an addict or I'm an alcoholic or whatever, right? And that's been the way to describe people for years. But the unconscious kind of connotations that are attached to that, even though someone, because I used to go and do media, and I'd say, because that's the framework that I came up in, I'm an addict and I'm in recovery, and I didn't realize that I was actually perpetuating stigma and stuff more by saying that, because I was reinforcing the stereotype in society, and what I've realized now, unconsciously telling myself that I'm an addict, which is attached to, someone laying in the gutter, no hoper, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I really have started to realize how much that was embedded in my psyche. It's really interesting. Was it the same for you with the whole criminal justice side of things?
Yeah. And even the addict thing as well. So what I believe is labels are stigmatizing and limiting.
Yeah.
So if you label me something and you see me as that, it's very hard to see me above that ever.
Yeah.
So I like labels are good on jars, not people. It's really good to know what's in a jar or something, but it's a triaging process that's driven through convenience from society. We need to have this done quickly and conveniently, and we can put that guy in that box there, and we know. But the problem that's happened as a result of that is I can't get out of the fucking box.
Yeah.
Like, you put me in it, how do I get out of here? Because, I'm calling myself an addict, but I can't get out. Like, and that self-perpetuating thing of around, the risk, going back to the risk. If people are deemed as a risk getting out of prison and they're a parolee, they're a criminal, they're seen as a criminal, how is it? So 20 years, 22 years actually, since I actually made the mistake. So the mistake that I made and the poor decision that I made that see me go to prison.
Yeah.
22 years ago, right?
Yeah.
However, you don't know me. I come for a job. You ask for my criminal record check. You see me and filter me through everything that you read on that piece of paper.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's like insane.
Yeah.
And this is what I say to employers, like, you're missing out on such a valuable opportunity for this individual today, long-term, loyal employee, that you're judging off a mistake that they made X amount of years ago. Like, what I teach people to say when they're in front of employers is, I made some terrible decisions in my life. I'm trying to make better decisions. Are you willing to help me?
Yeah.
Are you willing to help me make better decisions in my life? Because I want to make better decisions. And if I was an employer, I'd be putting that person on. But one, they're asking for help, which is a valuable asset. Like, lots of people just will not ask for help and they'll fuck things up royally. Okay, this guy's willing, wants to learn, he's a sponge, and I can just mold him into anything that I want, really. So how can I get you on board, mate? Yeah, I want to help you make better decisions in your life.
Yeah.
I want to do that. How can I help you do that? Give me a job. Okay. So those things around, and going back to the risk, and when people got out of prison, imagine this conversation differently. Hey, Jack, you're going to get out of prison in a couple of weeks, a month or so. What is it that you'd like to do? What skills do you have that you can provide to the community? What are you interested in doing?
Yep.
Over and above, hey, Jack, we're really concerned about your criminal activity. We're really concerned about your drug use. I haven't used drugs for over 2 years because I've been locked up. Haven't done any criminal activity for over 2 years because I've been locked up. So almost they're just perpetuating that getting out. Like, and then you've got to go. So they say you can't hang around with other people that are, criminals. It's sorting. But they make you go to these groups at parole that are full of criminals. So they're telling you all these other people are shit. They're all criminals. All those people are criminals. You can't hang out with them. But I'll put you in a group with them. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute. I'm in a group with I'm one of these guys. So there's that self-perpetuating thing again of they're hearing about all these other people and how terrible they are. But yet I'm in a group with all the other terrible people. I must be one of those people.
Yeah.
And that's liminal. That's like a real fucking at-depth deprivation of humanity. You know what I mean? How can we keep individuals stuck in this?
Yeah. It's true. So true. And that was probably my biggest learning last year, just with all of this stuff, as I started to advocate on the drug and alcohol side a bit more, and all that stuff is just and I don't think a lot of people talk about it, and it's really cool to have the conversation with you, but just how much that kind of subliminal programming from labels and the way that we talk about things actually keeps someone stuck in whatever pattern they are. And it's kind of funny because it's actually crossing over into like that, that old school, like Tony Robbins self-development stuff. But I guess it's kind of true, and I've really discovered that, like what people take on as their identity is what they then kind of display in their behaviors and actions. And to actually help them to change their behaviors and actions, you can't work on the behaviors and actions. You need to help them change their identity. But to help them change their identity, you need to change the public conversation around it so that they're not getting bombarded with it,
So I'm in the process of trying to set up a bit of a movement and I haven't quite got the social, and you experienced the issues that I faced with the technology around trying to get in contact with me. So other words. So when we use other words and the words we use, like, and how we use them, that is the most powerful thing we can do to change people's lives. So when I don't label someone, and when I don't, like, the stigmas that come from that, I'm an addict, I'm a, whatever, and, whether it's re-owning those words or whatever it is for individuals, like, don't get me wrong, NA saved my life 100%, unequivocally. I'll never dispute that, ever. Saved my life numerous times. However, I take issue around those, pedestal behaviors, and, coming into those spaces, and, people aren't really that well, and we need to get them to help us to do other, like, it is what it is. And hopefully it's saving other people's life, and it has the ability. But what I've learned and what I understand, it's a very old system that isn't probably up to date with what we know around trauma and shaming. Like, the issue with NA, it saved my life, but it almost fucking killed me, because I had a significant period of clean time, and I was too ashamed to walk back through those doors, because I thought that fucking 785 days or whatever the fuck I had was like, oh wow, I was just so fucking tied up in it.
100%.
I'll never fucking count another day in my life. And people always say to me, oh, how many days? I was like, fuck, I don't know how many days. I'm like, I'm fucking clean right now. I'm with you in front of you right fucking now. If you don't want to participate in that because you're concerned about how many days I might have, that's your stuff. That's not my stuff. Like, I'm a valuable human being. I'm not a fucking number.
Mate, it's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because I'm having kind of a similar experience, and I'm coming from, that kind of recovery community and loving all the people there, and I'm the same as you, loving the kind of the 12-step programs, because it absolutely saved my life, and I've tried to give a lot back and all that stuff as well. But just kind of having a few awakenings around a few different things over the last couple of years, just in terms of the impact, on society and changing narratives and stuff like that, and beliefs changing. It's been really hard to kind of talk about it and not kind of shit on it, but sort of tell the truth,
It really feels hard, mate. It really does.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. Something, like I said, something that really fucking saved my life. And all of my friends are fucking in NA. Like, I don't have friends outside of sort of 12-step recovery. And I don't really fucking need anyone outside of it, because they're really fucking quality people.
Yeah, that's right.
A person in recovery from substance abuse, I don't think there are any fucking better people. Mainly because they know, and they treat people fucking humanely. They know the suffering. And on any given day, I can be some spiritual fucking guru, or I can be an absolute prick. But the illusion of coming in there and tying, the spiritual guru to 5 years clean, like, that's the problem I see. So if I come in, well, that guy's got 5 years, he needs to be my sponsor, and whatever, like those sorts of, it's like, no. Like, he's no better than me, and I'm no better than him. What happens is it puts those unbalance in the relationship of, oh, he's got more clean time than me, or she's got more clean time than me. I need to learn from them.
I need
to learn from them, but it's irrelevant if how much clean time they got. That's what I'm trying to say.
100%. And we've got a few more people watching now, which is cool. So just before we wrap up, everyone, if anyone has any comments or questions, drop them in. You've just got a lot of love, Dean, coming from a lot of people just saying it's awesome. The conversation.
Thanks for the love, guys. Love some questions. I really appreciate and value. Look, I'm not fucking right. I know I'm not right. Challenge me, challenge my thinking. That's the only way. And you just said it, Jack. Like, you were challenging your thinking last year. It helped you to change your thinking.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Unless I'm challenged in these thoughts that I have and the patterns that I have, I can't change and be educated in anything. So I really value robust discussion and hearing other people's opinions because I was like, okay, that's not going to work for me, but I'll meet someone one day and that'll work for them.
Yeah.
And then I'll go, hey, go and see Jack because Jack knows all about that shit.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to be the ultimate, like I'm the guy you come and see about X, Y, or Z. I want to be the guy that knows about what I know about, and then how can I introduce you to Jack?
Yeah.
Because he's going to help you, because you really sound like you'd get on with him in those ways of recovery.
Yeah.
And that's how I see us, breaking down that one size fits all.
Yeah.
How do we do that? When the government gives so much money to all these large organizations to park people until they go back to prison. It's insane.
So what we're talking about, everyone, is we're talking about criminal justice reform, and we kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit with like society narratives and all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting. But just quickly, Dean, tell me what do you do now with like your work? It sounds like there's a few different areas that you focus on, but how do you kind of come in and help? Do you help individuals, or do you go and talk to organizations to help reform in the justice system, or how does it work?
So, co-production, I think, is the way of the future. So sitting down with academics and working out how I can speak language that is going to be able to impact and change the criminal justice system, and all sorts of other different systems. And ultimately, what I try and do and what I'm doing at the moment is it's educating business. So if I go into a business and I say, hey, what's your highest turnover role? Okay, great. How much did you spend on it last year? X, we put, $80,000. We put 4 people through it. Cost us $20,000 on board. Okay.
Yep.
If I could save you that money, how much of it would you give me? I'll look at getting and triaging individuals into that role. But what you need to promise me is, okay, when I get the guy and he comes in, 12 months you get of my services, any issues you call me.
Yeah.
In 12 months' time, they need to be, you work out where else they're going to go in your organization. Then I'll get you another guy. I said, in 3 years' time, you won't need me. So I'm obsolete. My job is done.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a long-term loyal workforce. I'll train all of your staff around how to do it and how to onboard these people appropriately and accordingly. And I'll train the people that you're getting around what they need to be responsible for, how they can be responsible, and not to, the opportunity that they get. Yeah. So that's, I provide programs for employers looking to employ people that face disadvantage and discrimination. So that's not only criminal justice, it's like across the board. I teach people how to mitigate risk and in that space, like HR, all that sort of stuff. And then up until COVID and I could go into prison, I was facilitating people exiting prison into employment. Yeah. So that's ultimately the work that I'm doing. Now I've focused a little bit more on the business and educating people in that sort of business side and organization side and, company side, and advocacy. Like I'm really working hard on speaking to people and the people that are in the know around how we can remove the barriers of discrimination and disadvantage people face in the community.
Fantastic. And how are you finding it?
Solutions focused. Like it's really easy to sit here and sprout all the shit around what's wrong. I really, would ultimately like to focus on solutions and how we can increase connection, celebrate diversity, and invite participation. Like that's ultimately what I want to do. Yeah. Because, LinkedIn, we're sitting on LinkedIn. So diverse workforces, if you want to understand how to build, create, design, and develop a diverse workforce, I'm the guy. I can help you with that and understanding diversity and the value of unlocking, providing opportunities and second chances for people.
And it's funny, like people always just with that employment stuff, people always talk about a merit-based system and, capacity-based system based on, you know, what you can actually do as a person, you know, and you essentially kind of being better than the other person at that particular skill.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about this, you know, it's so funny. Like a lot of people with a record would have better skills in whatever area it is, but yeah, they just miss the opportunity because of this
resilience and resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Resilience and resourcefulness, they're the buzzwords at the moment. I have never met a more resilient and resourceful group of people ever.
Yep.
Like resilience, what builds resilience? Adversity. Like the adversity that most of these people have been through would kill many people.
That's right.
Resourcefulness, some of the things that I've seen people be able to do while I was in prison and you know, boil a jug of water with 2 hot wires in a, you know, PowerPoint. So, like, MacGyver style shit, right?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, some of the stuff that they've been able to, like, there's no more resourceful demographic than these people. If people want access to that, 18,000 people get out of prison every year in New South Wales.
Yeah.
There's the workforce. If you're looking for a workforce, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So interesting. So, just quickly, the other thing I was going to ask you as well before we finish up is what's you've spoken about it a little bit already, but like, what's the major change that you want to see happen? Like what's kind of the first step that we need to shift? And also, like, when you've been going in and talking to people and trying to change these attitudes, how have you found it? Has it been difficult? Have you felt like you're hitting your head on a brick wall, or how have you found it?
So language is the first thing.
Yep.
Once we start to change the language, and because the thing is, I still need to use certain languages for people to understand who I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like there's that common language that's already acceptable. So changing those languages and those things. However, when I'm sitting in front of people that make decisions and I explain to them what I've just said then around, hey, given, you know, safest thing you can do is give someone a job. And they, tell us more about, like, and when I get people in front of people, humans in front of humans, not a piece of paper assessing another human, like there's no, like, it's easy. The issue is getting those individuals together and connecting in those spaces. You know what I mean? That's the issue. So I don't feel like when people hear and understand it, mainly because what's happening with the employment market at the moment, there's massive churn. They're not whole, you know, people want to, you know, there's a real thirst in the marketplace for social value, social capital, whatever. And there's a lot of, you know, cowboys in that space at the moment, let's say, around like, let's get in and do all this. You know, there's a few organizations, you know, Prisoners Aid that I know do really good work in that space. So that sort of stuff and value in employment spaces. You know, I was just going to do a post this morning. Wildflower Roman, you know, he's looking at he's come to this Deadly Connections where I've been doing a bit of work. Want to employ people that has record. Like there's people that want to help, they just don't know how yet.
Yeah,
it's around. Let's teach you how to do this. That's going to stick long term. Because what happens is there's a lot of people in the space at the moment that are like, oh, well, quick. This is a long-term solution. I'm not providing quick fix solutions. You know, there is no such thing as a quick fix solution. You know, what I see and what we need to do is like really unpalatable for a lot of people. But sooner or later, we've got to eat the shit sandwich. You know, it's inevitable. Otherwise, you look at the mass incarceration situation in the States. Like, take a look at that and the trouble they're in over there. They can't get people to do the work because 1 in 5 has been to prison. It's just like insane.
Yeah.
So like, and all of the evidence is, like you build a prison, that community becomes more violent. Like they've done research now, and they've got the data to prove it, that if you build a prison, wherever you build that community becomes more violent. So prisons aren't providing the illusion that they're providing that safety in the community. You know, paradoxically, they're making communities more violent. So like it's like raising awareness and getting to the ears that need to hear that. That's the challenge, really.
Yeah, yeah, mate. It's so interesting. We're gonna have to have you back on because I'm not blowing smoke up your backside, but this has seriously been one of my favorite chats because it's such a fascinating topic and something that really needs to change. In the alcohol and drug space, as you know, we find ourselves talking about the criminal justice system so much because it impacts everything. So I thank you for coming on. I better bounce because my beautiful dog is starting to bark at the tradies. That's right. So, but thanks so much. If anyone wants to find you, where's the best place?
On LinkedIn at the moment. I'm having technical difficulties. So, yeah, anywhere on LinkedIn. So, Dean Lloyd on LinkedIn.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, even if you Google criminal consultant, I'll come up somewhere. So, yeah.
Yep. Awesome, mate. Awesome. Hey, thanks so much. It was a pleasure, and we'll connect again soon, mate. Cheers.
Pleasure. Really appreciate the time, Jack. Thanks, mate.